It is soon time to head to the polls, just about a month away. So, what's on the ballot? Ahead on Face the State today, we'll look at what voters will be weighing in on for the May primary and how the Board of Elections is preparing to make sure your vote is counted. Plus, Ohio House Republicans rolling out the changes they want to see with how your tax dollars are spent. Ahead, the millions of dollars that could be cut from schools and libraries and why. And some families left owing thousands of dollars because of Medicaid. Just ahead, how a proposed bill hopes to help Ohioans know exactly what they're signing up for. And the sales tax just went up in several central Ohio counties. So where are you going to see it cost you more? At restaurants, the store, or even car shopping? We'll have that answer for you ahead at 11:55. Face the State starts right now. The May primary is almost here. Tomorrow, on Monday, it is the last day for you to register to vote, and early voting starts the very next day. Thanks so much for joining us this morning for Face the State. I'm Angela Ann. Doug is off. Well, the primary during an off year typically has low voter turnout and often goes under the radar. But this year, there are several levies on the ballot that will determine how much you pay in taxes and where those dollars are going. Plus, there is one statewide issue on your ballot, and that is Issue 2. Issue 2 would authorize the state to allocate $2.5 billion over 10 years to fund public infrastructure projects. That program, funded with bonds, meaning your property tax bill will not change regardless of the election result. If it passes, Issue 2 would take effect immediately. So to tell us more about what is on the ballot and really the preparations underway right now, we are so glad to have Aaron Sellers joining us from the Franklin County Board of Elections. Aaron, good to have you with us as always.
Thanks, Angela. Nice to be back.
Well, let's talk about this. We're about a month out from the May primary. We just talked about Issue 2. What else will voters see on the ballot this year?
So because of State Issue 2, all 298 of our voting locations will be open on May 6th. So it is a full county-wide. A lot of instances, like for instance, my ballot is only one item on that ballot where I live. But other folks, depending on where they live, will have some things on their ballot. Columbus will have a city council race, a primary in District 7 that all voters in Columbus will be able to participate in. The Columbus City School Board has a primary. Whitehall has a primary in District Ward 2. As well as some other areas. Then there's taxes, levies, school stuff that'll be on the ballot.
So it's really important for people to know that even if they say, oh, it's just one thing on it, you still need to come out. That's the statewide issue, but you'll have other things that are so local to you that will affect your life. So it's important to come out.
The question I always get about off-year elections and, why should I come out and vote in those? And obviously, a lot of the off-year elections have a lot of tax and spend issues, so so it's always important to participate in the process. If you've got something on the ballot, you should educate yourself and participate.
Traditionally, the turnout not as high as a presidential year. So what are you expecting for this May?
I learned long ago to not get into the prognostication of turnout, but it will be pretty light. I anticipate. If we get to 10%
really?
turnout, but hopefully, it certainly will be higher than that. But with not a lot on the ballot, we'll see. But I hope that's not the case.
It's always 10% voting and 90% complaining right after the fact. I'm just kidding. But let's talk about it then. Are there incentives or things that you guys have tried over the year at the Board of Elections to really encourage voter turnout?
Well, like doing things like this. To be out in the community and let folks know what's going to be on the ballot. I know the Secretary of State does things as well to try to get word out, public service messages, those types of things. Earned media is an important part of our thing that we do. But what we will be doing, and we've been doing this for several election cycles now, we will be mailing out things to every registered voter in the county to let them know, what's going on and when the election is and what's on the ballot.
I really like that flyer. What does it say? Know before you go?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really, it's just like a one fact sheet that you can just take with you.
Yeah, and those are things that we'll mail out to every registered voter in the county. I don't know if we household it or if it goes out to every registered voter.
We do want to remind people about absentee ballots because so many people, that is another option that people can do if they can't make it to the polls in May. You have to apply by April 29th, meaning you have to ask the Board of Elections where you live to have the application sent to you. But if you don't get it back in time by that postmark, what then?
So several years ago, the legislature changed a little bit of election laws to when you can request a ballot, and that has to be for this election cycle. April 29th is when you is the last day that you can request an absentee ballot.
So a week before Election Day, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And that it makes sense, and I think it was a bipartisan issue because the old deadline used to be the Saturday before the election. We know that there's no way that somebody's going to get their ballot and get it back to us in 3 days. So that was certainly a good thing. Once the voter gets their ballot, as long as it's postmarked by the day before the election, they can mail that back to us. And as long as we receive it 4 days after Election Day, we can count that ballot. So it's the Saturday after Election Day.
Got it. And so if they don't postmark it, say, and I know you get this a lot, people walk in on Election Day with their absentee.
Yeah.
Then that's when they have to go to the provisional, right?
Well, if you have your ballot, if you have an absentee ballot, one, it needs to come to us at our office. You can't bring it into one of the 298 locations, unfortunately. You'd have to bring that to us. And
Actual Board of Elections.
Correct.
Okay.
And we would need that by 7:30 on election night. And then what was the follow-up question?
If they aren't registered to vote by the deadline, which is tomorrow, but then they still want to vote, is there provisionals?
Yes. If a voter, we certainly won't turn a voter away from a polling location. We will offer them a provisional ballot, and those are handed out if the information that we have in our system, the address, doesn't coincide with their ID. If they're not in the system, if they have a name change, those are things that would institute a provisional ballot. There is a misnomer that's out there that provisional ballots aren't counted or they only count them in close races. That is certainly not the case. We have bipartisan teams that go through those to make sure that vote should be counted. So.
And let's talk about making sure every vote is counted because so many people question security measures and what you guys are doing. And I know a few years ago the county rolled out some, more secure voting machines, right? Yeah,
it's probably been 4 or 5 elections that we've got new voting equipment that's paper-based from our old IVR machines where you actually voted on the machine.
Right.
So there is a paper component, and certainly I think it's gone very well for us.
Excuse me, got a little tickle in my mouth here. Polling location changes, will people expect any changes there?
Yeah, unfortunately, we always have a few locations that for whatever reason can't have us because of, construction, things of that matter. But yes, there will be, and any voter that has a change, we notify them by mail of that, and we'll have that on our website that folks can look at to make sure. The sample ballots for the May 6th primary are loaded on our website. If you want to see what's going to be on the ballot, we certainly encourage folks to do that, to see what's on it before they go. They can do that. They go to our website and they can actually look at what the ballot's actually going to look like.
Well, I know we're asking you a ton of questions, Aaron. I have a few more, though, because we know that this is kind of game time for you, right? Presidential election is like the Super Bowl. This is kind of May primary. What are you doing to prepare?
Yeah, so what I like to tell folks is whether it's a presidential election, whether it's gubernatorial, or an off-year election like we're in now, we do the same things every election cycle. We abide by the Ohio Elections Official Manual, and everything. What we did last year in November, we're doing the same thing right now. We've got folks in the office preparing all the machines that are going to go out to the 298 locations. They're putting the ballots on the machines, the logic and accuracy testing. There's lots of things that are going on. Our poll worker department is busy reaching out to our poll workers to get them scheduled for training. Training is starting now. We've got youth at the booth. Whether it's for dog catcher or president, we do the same thing every election cycle.
And you are looking for volunteers, right? Always for poll workers.
Yeah, we're always looking for poll workers. We've got a very dedicated staff of poll workers. And again, as I like to tell folks, if we didn't have those folks, we couldn't do what we do. When we have a full countywide, our goal is to recruit upwards of 5,000 folks for those 298 locations. I think we're off to a very good start. I don't have percentages of what we have, but we are off to a good start, and we've got a very dedicated team that this is their job. This is what we do. We run elections. So
and to ramp up over the next 30 days. Talk about what happens when those polls close. How soon will those votes be counted, and how soon can we expect to see results? Yeah,
so on election night, typically stuff starts coming back to us after the polls close at 7:30. We're a hubbub of activity out at the board. Probably about 8:20, folks start bringing supplies back to us. It's busy for a couple of hours, folks bringing stuff back. It's always our goal to get the unofficial results back before, we certainly would like to have it by the 11 o'clock news. Generally, we hope to do it before the end of the day. Sometimes in big presidential cycles, sometimes it takes a little longer. Sure. I anticipate this cycle that we should have unofficial results, hopefully before midnight.
Well, we have your cell phone, so we'll be calling you because we're on every platform, streaming, 10 TV Plus, online, so we want it right when they come in.
The hotline.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of talk right now because the real ID deadline is coming up May 7th, which is the day after Election Day. But so many people right now are changing out their identifications, right? And they're going to the BMV to get new ones. Let's remind people again what they need to know, what they need to bring with them ID-wise so that they can vote. Yeah,
so when you go to vote, on Election Day, or if you want to come to our office where voting begins on Tuesday, you would need a valid state driver's license or state ID card. You can use a passport or a passport card, valid. If you're a military member and you have a military ID, those can be used as well. So those are the items, and this is several election cycles now, so I think most of the viewers are aware of what they need to do.
Yeah. Gone are the days that you can bring that utility bill. You don't have to dig that out because they won't take it anyways,
yes,
right?
that now is not a form of ID that we accept. Another one that I do want to mention is the state of Ohio now has a driver's license that you can have on your phone.
That's right.
As of now, that is not a legal form of ID that we can accept for voting.
Lots of great information. Aaron Sellers, thank you so much for coming.
All right. Thanks,
really
Angela.
appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
The County Board of Elections.
Thank you.
All right, let's run through some of those important dates once again for the May primary. Again, early in-person voting this week is from 8 to 5 p.m. Tuesday through Friday. There is no early voting this weekend, but the polls open again Monday at the same time. Now, the last day of early voting is May 4th. That is a Sunday, with Election Day then on Tuesday, May 6th. Well, a new bill to make sure you know what you're getting into when you sign up for Medicaid. Coming up in just 2 minutes here on Face the State, why Ohio lawmakers say there needs to be more transparency so you or your family don't get hit with any surprise bills. Plus, local sales tax, it's gone up. Why buying goods in Franklin and some parts beyond will cost you more, and by how much. Well, just this past week, Ohio lawmakers introduced a bill that they hope will increase transparency for people who sign up for Medicaid. Here's why. Many people across the state are signing up and not knowing that they have to pay that money back. Then after they die, the surviving spouse is left with quite a bill that's a surprise. This is a story 10 TV's Kevin Landers uncovered months ago. He joins us now on Face the State to talk a little bit more about this. So, Kevin, this is really jaw-dropping what you've been telling us. Just days ago, you were inside that hearing that talked about this, where lawmakers introduced this at the State House. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's called Medicaid estate recovery. What that means is exactly what you said. When someone passes along, the bill that they receive from Medicaid, that has to be paid back. And a lot of people don't realize that. And what this bill would do is it would provide transparency. What that means is they want the bill to explicitly tell people that if you sign up for Medicaid, this is what you're going to have to do when you pass away. That bill for those services that were provided will have to be paid back to the state.
Okay, in February, you also reported on this issue. You spoke with a lot of people who received bill. How much money are we talking about here?
So people receive thousands of dollars in bills from the state of Ohio. And by law, Ohio can take your home, your car, to pay back the money owed to Medicaid. The bottom line is it can be expensive to die in Ohio.
Better communication builds trust between Ohio's government and its citizens. When people feel blindsided by these state recovery claims, it can lead to frustration and distrust.
And they told me, like everybody else thinks, it's free. So I was on it for a year, and then my friend Bob Weldon let me know that, did you know that there's a estate recovery, that if when I die, that they're going to ask for those premiums back through my estate? And I said, no, I did not.
Plus, one other thing to note, Angela, the bill does have bipartisan support.
So clearly, everyone seems to be on board with saying we need more transparency, because that's the last thing a family wants to deal with, is a bill when you're dealing with grief of the passing of a loved one. Okay. So what will happen then if this bill passes? How soon, and what will we actually be able to see?
Well, it's right now in the committee stage, so they haven't voted it out of committee yet. They're going to have opponent testimony coming up next week, so we'll hear that. And then after that, we'll see what happens. But at this point, it's still in its infancy. This actual bill was proposed in the last General Assembly. They didn't have enough time. This time, they're hoping that it's been tweaked, that it's been written correctly, that they have the votes to pass it out of committee and then hopefully get to the House floor.
And will there actually be something on the bill that will say, like, exactly this is what you owe us?
Right. They want the bill to say exactly before you sign up and after you sign up, that you know exactly what you're signing up for. One thing they don't have in this bill, and one of the people who have been pushing for this bill wanted, is they wanted to ensure that people who sign up for Medicaid estate recovery or Medicaid benefits, that they actually have to sign the paperwork. And oftentimes, which is surprising, is people don't have to sign up for Medicaid. People could just verbally say they want it.
Wow.
They actually wanted a line in the bill to say that you actually have to get a signature, but that's not in this bill.
And it only applies to people over the age of 55, right? Real quick.
That's right. It does only apply to 55, and that's one of the issues people have, is why is that only 55 and over have to pay the money back? Those who are under 55 don't.
Right.
That's not part of this bill, but that's another question for another day. Yeah.
Another episode of Face the State for sure.
Right.
All right,
right.
Kevin, thank you so much for reporting on that. Certainly something that we will follow closely. And of course, as we talk about this, there are many programs that really affect this situation. The bill, again, doesn't address what that has. So, Kevin, thank you again. We have other things that lawmakers are doing. House Republicans are proposing new changes that would impact how your child's school is actually funded. So this is all part of a new measure that GOP lawmakers want to add to the governor's proposed state budget. This change would require each county budget commission to identify when a school district carries over more than 25% of its operating budget. Now, for every percent over that mark, the commission then must reduce your property tax bills in the following year based on that amount.
But this is immediate relief that does not cost the state money. We're not going to shift tax burden from one set of taxpayers to another.
Plus, fears of state funding cuts are now trickling to local libraries, where an amendment to the House's proposed budget could cut $100 million from the Public Library Fund. So the Columbus Metropolitan Library is now asking supporters to reach out to lawmakers. Here's the letter from the library CEO that was sent out last week. It explains how the library system relies on state money for things like school help centers and adult education resources. Here's what Representative Brian Stewart said about that funding when it was first proposed.
With regard to libraries, we are going to transition away from this kind of set 1.7% and go towards a flat, direct appropriation to our libraries.
Now, Columbus isn't the only library system that is speaking out about this. Bexley Library also asking voters to tell their representatives to vote against this funding cut. Also, in the House version of the budget, we learned lawmakers talked about how your money could help build a new Cleveland Browns stadium. This would be for the proposed stadium in Brook Park. The state has been asked to issue $600 million in bonds for that project.
I point out this is in many ways, to my mind, is like a loan. The team has given, I think, very reasonable metrics on what type of increased economic activity is going to be associated with this project.
House Speaker Matt Huffman says they hope to pass the state's proposed budget sometime this week. Well, we have a heads up about a new law taking effect this Wednesday. It changes how landlords can move forward with housing-related lawsuits. This law protects Ohio renters from lawsuits that are often filed to intimidate or punish people for expressing their opinions. Well, this means now that if you write a negative review about your landlord or your living conditions, you will have stronger legal protection. But keep this in mind, that does not mean every lawsuit will be dismissed. Meantime, multiple bills about sub-metering are making their way through the State House. The practice is popular at condos and apartments where third-party companies bill people for their utility usage without supplying it. One Ohio House member is trying to regulate these companies. He says this could save property managers a lot of money.
The biggest gaps are essentially this is an unregulated market. The PUCO, and from the state perspective over what even is, sub-metering, how is it treated by the state, who oversees the billing process, for example, or to make sure that it's being spread among the correct, tenants.
These bills are currently in the early stages of moving through the State House, so we'll, of course, keep you posted with the progress. $11 billion to make Ohio roads better and safer. Governor Mike DeWine approved the investment Monday as part of his 2-year transportation budget. More than 90% of ODOT's budget will be spent on maintenance and also improvements to existing roads, bridges, and other infrastructures. It'll also be used to help with snow and ice operations. That budget goes into effect July 1st. Well, your next car could cost you hundreds more in taxes alone. Just ahead, why some counties in Central Ohio are seeing a jump in sales tax and where the new funds are going. Did you notice the difference at the bottom of your receipt this past week? If so, there's an extra 0.5% sales tax that took effect Tuesday for any area serviced by CODA. 10 TV's Colin Dorsey explains just how much things will cost you now and where the money is supposed to go.
The biggest place you might notice this increase is when you go to buy a car. Let's say this is a $40,000 car. Until yesterday, you were going to pay about an extra $3,000 to cover the 7.5% sales tax in Franklin County. Now, that extra 0.5% will run you another $200 before you can get it off the lot.
It's all an attempt to improve these buses in Central Ohio. LinkUs promises to add 14 new or improved transit lines and also add bus rapid transit. It's a concept new to Central Ohio, but not Indianapolis.
I think it helps get from place to place a lot faster, a lot easier.
In March, I went to the city to see how their bus rapid transit system is working 6 years after rolling out the first line.
We go, we set our speed. We don't have to slow down when a slow car gets in front of us. We don't have to change lanes. So I think you feel the efficiency when you're on it.
Bus Rapid Transit creates dedicated bus lines in effort to make the system as close to light rail as possible without the added infrastructure or expense. It's not just for Franklin County. Any part of any county with CODA service is getting this 0.5% hike. Here's a look at what each of the affected areas in these counties will now pay on things like clothes, restaurant meals, and furniture. If you're a part of the county that doesn't have CODA service, you won't see this increase. There's good news, though. There are certain items that are sales tax exempt in the state. That includes your prescription medications, groceries, and utility bills.
And you may think to get around paying that extra sales tax, you can just leave one of the affected counties. Not so fast. State law says you've got to pay the sales tax where you register the car. Colin Dorsey, 10 TV News.
Colin, thanks. Great visuals there. Thank you so much for joining me this week for Face the State. Doug will be back next week, and we'll see you back here next Sunday at 11:30.